The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect the policies and the position of Now You Know.
Good evening and welcome to Viewpoint. Together with experts and newsmakers, we make sense of the week's biggest issues and stories. I'm Barnaby Lo in tonight's conversation. 148 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines for 50 to 70 million Filipinos from 7 different manufacturers. Pandemic Task Force Chief Implementer and vaccine czar Carlito Galvez Jr. says this proves the government isn't favoring any company or brand. But a number of senators have questioned the executive department's seeming preference for Coronavax, a vaccine developed by Chinese pharmaceutical company Sinovac. Sinovac has applied for emergency use authorization with the Food and Drug Administration, but has yet to submit data from its Phase 3 trial. Despite this, the national government has ordered 25 million doses of Coronavax, the first installment of which may arrive next month. Only Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine has been granted emergency use authorization in the Philippines so far. Meanwhile, local governments and the private sector have secured 17 million doses of AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine. And joining us tonight for this discussion on the Philippine government's COVID vaccination plan is none other than the Director General of the country's Food and Drug Administration, Dr. Eric Domingo. Good evening, Dr. Domingo. Welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, good evening, Barnaby. Good evening, everybody.
Yes, I know you only have until 6 p.m., so I'm going to get into the discussion now. First of all, if you can update us on the statuses of the application for emergency use authorization, as well as clinical trials of the different COVID-19 vaccines.
Okay, let's start with the clinical trials. Now, there are 3 clinical trials that have been approved by FDA. That is the trial from Janssen, ito yung company that's owned by Johnson & Johnson, one by Clover Pharmaceuticals, and one by Sinovac. Sinovac also has a clinical trial that has applied with FDA, and that was already approved. For the EUAs, and other than that, wala pa tayong backlog. We have finished evaluating all of those and approved them. For the emergency use authority, we have 4 applications. The first one was by Pfizer, which was applied with us right before Christmas, and true naman to our timeline of 21 days for vaccines with EUAs from stringent regulatory authorities. We were able to issue out and complete our decision on the EUA of Pfizer, and we granted the EUA application of Pfizer yesterday. We have a second application that is from AstraZeneca. This was applied after New Year's, and this is now being evaluated by our experts. They're now at that usual stage where the experts ask questions, and then the proponents give their answers and see if that's satisfactory. A third application would be the Gamaleya Institute. This is the Sputnik vaccine from Russia, and this is also in the early stages of evaluation. Tapos yung last nga, nag-apply was Sinovac. This was applied a few days ago. So undergoing pre-assessment, and the pre-assessment shows that although they have submitted most of the documents needed, yung main requirement kasi natin na basis talaga for our decision would be the interim results, the early report of the clinical trial phase 3. And they have not submitted that yet, so we're waiting for that as of now.
So, kompleto po yung sa AstraZeneca tsaka sa Gamaleya, approved na yung sa Pfizer, kulang yung sa Sinovac.
Yes, so we just made a pre-assessment and they still need to submit some more documents.
Okay, exactly ano po yung hinahanap nyo pa sa Sinovac?
Well, sa Sinovac, yung talagang pinaka-important na wala pa, yung phase 3 clinical trials nila. Kasi yun talaga yung magiging basis natin, no, whether to grant an EUA or not. You have to show that benefit outweighs risk. And that you can only see that with the interim results of the phase 3 trials.
I'm asking kasi naglabas na sila ng mga press releases sa Turkey, sa Brazil, ng efficacy rate nila and sinasabi din nila na safe yung vaccine nila. So bakit hindi po ba tayo tiwala dito sa mga press releases na ito?
Well, you know, press releases are not scientific papers, no? When you submit a scientific paper, it includes the whole protocol, the results of all of the I don't know, all of the participants, the exact methodology that was done, and the analysis how the data was analyzed. So, yung press release, talagang press release lang yon, no? We never count that as an official scientific document.
So in other words, you don't see the data yet behind the efficacy rates that they have released. Pero yung efficacy rates po na varying sa iba't ibang bansa where they did their trials, what does that mean to you? What does that say to you?
Well, yun nga until you see it, we won't be able to analyze, no? There must be some explanation for it, but you know, it should be written in the paper. Pero yan ang mga usual na pag tinakita ng mga experts, kapag yung methodology mo iba-iba, kapag yung outcome measures mo iba-iba, kapag yung analysis mo iba-iba per site, yun yung mga pinapa-explain natin, ano? Because what we want is to get a comprehensive view of the actual efficacy and safety profile of a product. So, you know, that we're really eagerly awaiting and to see how they will consolidate all of this data into one report.
Pero, you know, I just want to clarify because masyadong, you know, doubtful na yung mga Pilipino sa Sinovac vaccine. So I just want to clarify, pwede itong varying efficacy rates from trials in different countries. It's possible.
Yes, they do it in several countries. And of course, there will be some differences, no? Even the AstraZeneca study, that one has been published. So if you look at it, it's in the New England Journal of Medicine, if I'm not right, no, a very prestigious journal. You will see that in different places may differences then. Nagkaroon sila ng different doses, tapos nagkaroon sila ng some were vaccinated after 4 weeks, some after 6 weeks, after 8 weeks. But this has been given an EUA, for example, but by the United Kingdom. So ito yung mga like yung experts natin, ito yung tinatanong, pinapa-explain sa kanila. Bakit ganon? Bakit may pagkakaiba? And you know, if there's a valid scientific explanation, then that will be taken into consideration.
Actually, medyo naguguluhan din po ako dun sa efficacy rates ng AstraZeneca. Kasi, what was that? 62% for 2 full doses, and then 90% for half, then a full dose.
Oh, that's one of the things we're asking for an explanation. What is the plausible explanation for such? And apparently, the half dose, full dose schedule happened by accident. No? And you know, we usually don't like accidents when we're doing clinical trials. No? We want everything to be deliberate and to follow the schedule and to follow the approved protocol. So these are things that we need clarified.
I'm singling out Sinovac and AstraZeneca kasi meron na po tayong 25 million na order ng Sinovac. And then we also have secured 17 million doses of AstraZeneca. So what happens kung hindi po ma-approve yung emergency use authorization for both these vaccines? And meron na po tayong market commitment.
Well, the short answer is that they can't use it. No? If you don't get an emergency use authorization, if our experts do not think that the benefit outweighs the risk, if they think that there are safety concerns, then the FDA will not issue an emergency use authorization, and that simply means that it cannot be used.
Okay, so dadating yung supply dito, pero hindi natin magagamit.
Kung darating, no, hindi natin alam kung ano yung kasi you know a lot of countries are doing this or yung pre-approval negotiations, no, like kaya nakakagulat, di ba? Yung Pfizer, for example, sa UK tsaka sa US, ka-approve ng EUA ngayon, bukas nagbabakuna na. No? Ibig sabihin, nag-order na sila, bumili sila, naka-place na yan. Pero alam nila yan na pag hindi na-approve yan, hindi yan magagamit. No? So, I'm sure may mga conditions, yung mga ganyan na early negotiations na if you don't go through, you don't pass the regulatory requirements, then it's probably null and void.
So tama naman yung ginagawa ng IATF to negotiate early kahit wala pa pong emergency use authorization. Kasi dito medyo the senators, Senator Tito Soto in particular was saying, bakit ba tayo nag-order ng 25 million doses? Wala pa tayong emergency use authorization for Sinovac.
Yeah, I think it's really to hasten the process. Kasi kung naman mag-uumpisa lang sila pag may emergency use authorization na, sabihin, ba't ang bagal-bagal nyo? Naubusan na kayo, no? So it's very difficult. It's a very difficult balancing act for government, no? Like I cannot assure them that it will pass approval from the FDA. But they have to work. Otherwise, pag nahuli naman, nagkaubusan na, wala rin ka namang makukuha. Yun yung marami talaga yung considerations.
But since AstraZeneca has been approved by stringent regulatory authorities, mas may chance po na ma-approve na rin yung AstraZeneca dito sa Pilipinas.
Better chance siguro than the others. No? Pero AstraZeneca only has one stringent regulatory authority approval, and that's from the UK. Wala silang approval, for example, from the US or Canada or the others. No? So talagang medyo pinag-aaralan din natin ng husto yan. Yung mga iba kasi like Sinovac, let's say Sinovac and Gamaleya, they do have emergency use authorizations from their countries, Russia and China, but these are not considered stringent regulatory authorities. And as such, we cannot use the decisions of their FDA counterparts we cannot rely on them. No? Hindi pwedeng isang pasa lang, okay na sa atin yan. Kailangan talaga, we treat it as if it were a first EUA application in any country. No? Kasi para sa atin, parang talagang nag-uumpisa from square one.
And just to be clear, this is not about where the vaccine was developed, right? So it's not because Sinovac was developed in China, kaya full of doubts and pinapahirapan and hinihinga ng kung ano-ano. It's not that, right?
No, definitely not. For example, Sinovac, for example, gets an approval from US FDA or gets an approval from the UK or from Canada or sa Pilipinas, sa Asia, sabihin natin, Singapore, Japan, Korea, yan. Stringent regulatory authorities yan. If they get an approval from those stringent regulatory authorities, then they're on the same footing as AstraZeneca and Pfizer. Kaya hindi dahil kung saan siya nanggaling, kung ano na yung regulatory authority na nakapag-aral, nakapag-evaluate dun sa kanyang produkto.
Okay. So then when you ask for Sinovac for these additional documents, what's been the reaction from them? Are they going to be able to...
They said they will comply with the requirement, no? Ako personally, what I think is, kasi if you read the news articles, diba, it's like they just ended the trials in these different areas in Turkey, in Brazil. So they're probably consolidating their clinical phase 3 trials. It's a multi-country phase 3 trial. They're probably consolidating it and writing down the scientific report. So I'm sure once it's ready, they will submit. And they replied that they will comply with the requirements.
So parang it's not a data transparency problem, but a communications problem.
No, I think they're just not.
From my observation, kasi parang they're communicating their results piecemeal, and it's kind of creating this confusion over their safety, over the safety of the vaccine, over the efficacy rates of the vaccine. Hindi po ba?
Yeah, as a scientist, this is one of the things that we're really not liking about this vaccine development. And Sinovac is not the only one that's guilty. All of them, all of the Pfizer, sila Moderna, sila AstraZeneca, yung pagkatapos pa lang ng kanilang clinical trial, hindi pa nagagawa yung scientific evaluation, lalabas na yung news report where 90% efficacy, 94% efficacy. It's like it's confusing everybody. Only when you do your complete evaluation and your analysis should you share your data with the world and with the academics, with the scientists, so that they can take a look at it. Talagang I think it's just because there's this race to develop a vaccine and everybody's excited and everybody wants to get information. Dati naman wala ka namang maririnig na ganyan, Barnaby, na have you ever heard of any preliminary data on a measles vaccine or a
Yeah.
polio vaccine? No, ngayon
Right.
lang yan eh. Oo, talagang, and it's really making things difficult and confusing.
Yeah. Well, things are really difficult right now, and now we are hearing that Pfizer in Norway, the health authorities in Norway are reporting that 23 people died shortly after getting their first dose of the Pfizer vaccine. And these are old people, elderly people with comorbidities. So, but we are already granted Pfizer the emergency use authorization. So, I mean, well, what do we make of this?
Well, I did ask Pfizer about it, no, and they are investigating it. It's in Norway kasi they inoculated very very old people. These are like over 94-year-old people, mga over 90s, like living in yung mga homes, elderly homes, and a lot of them were very sick. So they're now investigating it kasi talagang initially yung Pfizer vaccine was tested in 16 to 85 years old. Kaya lang si Norway talagang went ahead and injected even the very elderly and even those that had a lot of systemic illnesses. So I think this is now being investigated.
Okay, but if it turns out na meron ngang ganun side effects, what are we gonna do? Babawiin ba natin
Then
yung UA
no,
or
then you limit then you put your product information. Don't give it to people who are older than 90 years old, you know.
Hmm.
Don't give it to people who are older than 90 years old who have a lot of comorbidities. No, that's
so
that's
parang di
that's
ba
what
siya?
it is.
Don't give
Yes.
it to
No, well,
people who've never had dengue.
yeah, parang ganon. Siyempre, parang yun yung tinatawag nilang relabeling or additional information. Now, for example, when Pfizer started, they gave it to everybody. But now, there's a warning that, don't give it to people who have severe allergies.
Mhm. So
Kasi natutunan na yun sa Amerika, di ba? Nagkaroon ng mga anaphylactic shock, nagkasevere.
bawal pala
So ngayon, kasama na yon sa ano niya.
I have
Kasama na niya
severe
sa
allergy.
information niya. Don't give it to people who have severe allergies. So ganun
Oh,
yun. It's really, since these are products under emergency use and are not yet fully developed, we really learn more and more as time passes and as more and more people are inoculated.
so that's normal in vaccine development. That's what you're saying. So
No,
no
no,
need to
it's not
panic.
normal.
No need.
We're in very abnormal times. It's normal sa vaccines under emergency use authorization. Pero yung dapat kasi, nilalabas mo yung vaccine pag completely alam mo na lahat ng resulta eh. Yun ang naging problem sa Dengvaxia. Nakikita na nila para may safety concern pero inilabas na. Usually, hindi natin nilalabas ang bakuna hanggang hindi na settle lahat ng safety concerns. But now, since we have an pandemic and we can't wait another 3 or 4 years before we use a vaccine, we use it as long as we know that generally the benefit outweighs the risk, and then we know what the risks are. But like I said, there are potential risks that will be uncovered later on.
Okay. So paano po natin gagawin yan? Kasi yung to boost the vaccine confidence in Filipinos, kasi the most recent survey showed that 47% of Filipinos would not want to be inoculated with a COVID-19 vaccine. And we all know this is a confluence of different factors. Meron na talagang before the Dengvaxia controversy, talagang pababa na yung vaccination rates natin. And then the Dengvaxia controversy happened. And now we have all these doubts about Sinovac, and we have that controversy as well of the PSG and Pogo workers getting unauthorized inoculation of presumably Sinopharm vaccine. So, I mean, hindi ba ito yung pinakamalaking obstacle natin? And what are we gonna do about that?
Well, you have to make everything very very transparent, and then you have to make everybody follow the same process, no? Yung dapat talaga naiintindihan ng mga tao na pag dumaan siya, inapprove siya halimbawa ng FDA, ay talagang pinag-aralan ng mga scientifico natin. Before the DOH buys it, there's a Health Technology Assessment Council that will decide first if it's cost effective. And then of course, when we do the vaccination, that we're going to monitor everybody very very closely. And it's really giving the information about the vaccine. Before you receive a vaccine, you should get all of the information about it, all of the benefits that you're going to get and your family is going to get because you're vaccinated and your community is going to get, and versus all of the possible risks, no, all the risks that we know and all of the potential risks that will happen. Kasi only then can you make an informed choice. Pag nagbakuna kasi tayo, talagang clear yon. Even the EUA that I issued out to Pfizer, that there has to be a written informed consent before any vaccination is done, meaning the person knows exactly what's there, what the product is, what are the possible things that might happen, what are the good things that might happen, and then you freely decide that you want to get vaccinated.
Does transparency include the prices of the vaccines? Because medyo issue po yan ngayon. People asking, magkano ba talaga yung bili ng gobyerno sa mga bakunang ito? Specifically, the Sinovac vaccine, because market price is 3,600 something, while in Indonesia, well, we know that in Indonesia, they're locally manufacturing it, pero medyo malayo talaga. 600 plus pesos yung sa Indonesia, 3,600 plus pesos dito. So, dun pa lang.
Well, I think you have to address all the doubts. No? Kung kasama yon sa pinagdududahan, then kailangan talaga, di ba, ma-share yung information within the bounds, the legal bounds, no, na pwedeng gawin nila Secretary Galvez, for example. No? I mean, I know that they do have some non-disclosure agreements, pero sabi sa Senado, for example, kahapon, okay naman yon while you're negotiating, but right before you buy it, you're allowed na daw to say the price. No? Pero ako, hindi ako abogado, doktor ako, no? But you know, if it's a source of doubt, then I think it should be addressed.
Would you know the price?
No, I'm not. I'm not included in the negotiations. And the FDA does not. Just to tell you, we do not distinguish kung saan nanggaling, kung saan ginagawa. Nor do we include price in our evaluation. It's only safety and efficacy for FDA.
Pero kung may trust issue sa Sinovac vaccine, let's just say Sinovac vaccine because yan pinaka-controversial ngayon eh. Kung may trust issue sa Sinovac vaccine, whether or not it's really efficacious and if it's really safe, pero may trust issue na talaga, should we not just drop it altogether? Because meron na ngang vaccine hesitancy among Filipinos.
Well, I think ang iniisip kasi talaga dyan, if like, before we started, there was this you had a news clip. What they're really trying to do to be able to secure doses for everybody is go to several suppliers, because no one supplier is going to be able to supply us with enough doses for 100 million people. You know, all of these suppliers are being sought after by all countries, no? So kung ang choice natin ay hindi na lang magbakuna versus magbakuna ng itong produkto na ito, siguro yun ang kailangan pag-isipan, no, ng DOH at saka ng task force. So pababayaan na lang ba natin yung 1/3 hindi mababakunahan or yung 25 million kung yung na-secure nila? Ganun kasi yung choices. It's not as simple as not buying this and just buying something else. There are other considerations like paano kung wala namang available na something else? For example, what if the something else is not as easily transportable as this Sinovac, which is at 2 to 8 degrees, which is I'm sure one of the considerations here ito kasi madaling ma-transfer, refrigerator lang. Yung -70, -80 ng Pfizer, hindi natin kayang dalhin yan sa probinsya, tsaka sa malalayong lugar. So, you know, there are a lot of things that they have to consider, and I'm sure they're taking all of this into consideration.
But Filipinos have the right to be choosy?
I have no idea what the final guidelines are gonna be. No? Sa FDA, ang ginagawa ko lang, kailangan maghahanap ako ng minimum requirement at yun, i-allow ko na maging choice ng pamahalaan. No? Pero pag binili na ng gobyerno kung paano nila i-roll out at kung sinong mababakunahan, I don't even know if I'm going to have a choice in what, and I'm a health worker. No? I don't even know what vaccine I'm gonna receive. So I'm sure they're making the guidelines pa for that.
Yeah, but just one last question on Sinovac. So theoretically, 50 to 78% efficacy. That's good. That's good enough, right, in a pandemic?
It's acceptable in a pandemic, especially if there are no other choices. For example, talagang kulang ka ng supplies, di ba? Kung meron kang hindi madadala sa isang lugar, that would probably become useful.
Okay, kung walang choice na. Okay, let's just make that clear. Kung talagang wala ng choice. But if we have a 90% efficacious vaccine and 95% efficacious vaccine, then Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna move on to we already mentioned the inoculation of the PSG, as well as apparently, allegedly, 100,000 Pogo workers, and again allegedly of the Sinopharm vaccine. You're still investigating this. Can we get an update on the investigation?
Well, they haven't given me an update yet. We have now a team composed of FDA, NBI, and the Bureau of Customs kasi we're looking at the smuggling angle and then where are they bringing this, where are they doing the inoculations. We did some raids in Binondo and in Makati pero walang nahuli na vaccines, no? So, well, the investigating team told me that they would give me a report in 20 days pero parang nakaka 1 week pa lang naman. All I know is that they're now they're having a lot of meetings with the Bureau of Customs and NBI, but wala pang solid information akong natatanggap.
Sabi ni Miss Tessie Angsi, who's a civic leader in the Chinoy community, the source is official or from high places. Are you looking
Well,
into?
I asked her, we were asking her nga through through lines. Kaya lang she can't give naman any details. I don't know what official lines mean, what official channels means. We need details, and anybody who has anything they can share with us that will help us with the investigations. It's very, very welcome.
Are you looking into the Chinese embassy, for example?
Well, only the DFA can do that. No, I can't even write them directly. No, so everything goes to the DFA.
Okay, so hindi pa.
Hindi, not FDA. FDA does not have the authority to investigate an embassy.
I mean, like, request the DFA at the very least to write to the Chinese embassy. Wala pang ganun.
Wala pa. No, I mean that might be a little sensitive. No, I don't know what official channel means. I mean, if she means diplomatic channel, I'm pretty sure the DFA has nothing in it because I've talked to Secretary Locsin about it, and he's so passionate about not allowing any illegal vaccines to get in here.
Okay, nanggaling po sa inyo, it's illegal, and the vaccination itself is illegal. But President Duterte has said not to touch the PSG. So, how does this affect your investigation?
Well, we're investigating, like any other complaint. Like when we receive any complaints of possible unregistered products that are being used in the country, we do an investigation, and we've had several complaints on it. So we are working on it.
So, wala pong effect or influence yung statement ni President Duterte. Although he addressed the statement to Congress, not to the FDA naman.
Yeah,
Pero
and I heard si spokesman Harry said naman na it doesn't include the executive branch.
okay. And then Senator Tito Soto saying na kaya ito nangyari dahil masyado daw mabagal ang FDA. What's your comment on that?
Well, wala naman yung lahat ng nag-a-apply po sa amin ay nagagawa namin na pa-process namin in time, no? And we've been very cooperative, and we've been every company that asks us what our requirements are and what the process is, we give them all the information that they can that they need. And talagang syempre we can only act upon an application if it is filed.
Okay. So you can't compel a pharmaceutical company or a manufacturer to file for an application for emergency use authorization.
I cannot compel any manufacturer to do anything. They come to us, they apply for a registration. I cannot compel any company to register a product with us.
Okay. All right. We have 2 minutes left, so I'm gonna quickly ask you about the face mask that you had just issued a warning about. People are asking why only now, why this brand, and what about cloth masks and
Okay.
also copper masks.
Okay. So, well, first of all, if they look at our webpage every day, makikita nyo yan. Siguro from 6 months ago pa, ang dami ng mga mask na mga nahuli, na dire-report namin. So, not all masks are registrable with FDA. If it's not a medical mask, you do not have to register it with FDA because this is for everyday use. So, yung mga cloth mask, Yung mga copper mask, hindi po yan nagre-register sa FDA and they do not sell their products, I believe, as medical devices. However, pag meron ka ng pag binebenta mo na siya as a medical device, meron ka ng claim ng 99% filtration, you claim it's an N95 or an N99. You claim that it's enough to be used in the hospital. Then you need to register your product with FDA to make sure that it passes the standards for medical products. So yun po yung mga dinalabas natin na advisories. And if you trace our advisories from 6-7 months back, there are so many brands of masks. Ito lang yung kahapon. Pero marami na po yan. Basta nagki-claim sila na medical device sila, that they are useful for medical purposes, they have to register with the FDA and they have to pass the standards.
So, would you recommend using copper masks? Medyo controversial po yung copper mask eh.
It's for an everyday use, yung mga naglalakad sa kalye, pareho naman yan ng mga cloth mask, di ba? Or mga makeshift na handkerchief na ilalagay, no? But not for medical purposes, definitely.
Okay, so if you're going to the hospital, for example, you're not supposed to be wearing a copper mask or a cloth mask. That's what you're saying. But if you're just walking on the street, then that should be okay.
Yes, oo, kasi nga hindi naman tayo strict sa mga non-medical masks. Kasi pag di-register pa naman na natin lahat 'yan, hindi na talaga kakayanin ng FDA. There's so many, no? And as long as they do not make any medical claims, then it's up to the consumer to decide.
All right. Okay, I'm hearing the music now. I'm going to have to let you go. It's already 6 o'clock. Thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Eric Domingo, Director General of the Philippine Government's Food and Drug Administration. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Do catch us live here on, Now You Know's Facebook page and Twitter and YouTube regularly every Saturday. And for updates on our upcoming episodes, do join our Facebook group. Just search for Viewpoint with Barnaby Lo. And you may reach me on my Twitter account at Barnaby Chuck for leads or for suggestions on topics. Again, my name is Barnaby Lo. This is Viewpoint. Now you know.